Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks, Salt and Light TV, EWTN, Shalom TV, and at Madarshan TV. But we also have radio listeners out there as well. Thank you to you for joining us, some of you through Radio Maria in England and others through Luminous Radio. And here we are with thousands who have come this rainy morning in order to hear the words of our Holy Father, many of them probably coming from Slovakia. There were about 25 pilgrims who came to Rome from Slovakia and met with Pope Francis in the Paul VI Hall yesterday. And in greeting the pilgrims, our Holy Father spurred them to continue to cultivate the richness of diversity of Slovakian society. He said, which can be found in the local church. He also recalled his visit to Slovakia and said that when I came to see you, I wanted to encourage you to walk the path of encounter all together, young people, families, the elderly, the different communities that have historically been a part of your society. And he went on to commend an aspect of Slovakian culture of hospitality and solidarity, symbolized by the Slavic custom of offering bread and salt to visitors as a sign of welcome. He said, which has proved itself once again in the tragic context of the ongoing war in Ukraine. As we know, many Ukrainians also finding welcome and hospitality in Slovakia. And as of yesterday, the church has a new blessed, Armida Barelli, who was a secular Franciscan and lived in Italy between 1882 and 1952. She was the co-founder of the Secular Institute of the Missionaries of the Kingship of Christ, together with Father Agostino Gemelli. Both of them sought to promote the gospel through education. And as we know, Agostino Gemelli, founding the university in Milan, a Catholic university, which the medical school here in Rome at Gemelli Hospital, which also serves the Pope. The curtain has now been drawn back, and Pope Francis now coming to the window. Holy Father greeting the crowds below. Here we see the signs of the Slovak pilgrims. Dear brothers and sisters, a happy Sunday to you all. The Gospel of today's liturgy recounts the third appearance of the risen Jesus to the apostles. It's a meeting that takes place by the lake or the Sea of Galilee, and above all, involves Simon Peter. It all begins with him saying to the other disciples, "I'm going fishing." There was nothing strange about this since he was a fisherman, but he had abandoned this work from the time he had left his nets on the shore of that very lake in order to follow Jesus. And now, while the risen one is waiting, Peter, perhaps a little disheartened, proposes to the others that he return to his former life, and the others accept. "We'll go with you," they say. But that night they caught nothing. This can happen to us out of tiredness, disappointment, perhaps out of laziness, to forget the Lord and to neglect the great choices we have made, to content ourselves with something else. For example, not to dedicate time to talk together in the family, preferring personal pastimes. We forget prayer, letting ourselves get wrapped up in our own needs. We neglect charity with the excuse of daily urgencies. But in doing so, we find ourselves disappointed. It's that same disappointment that Peter had with empty nets, just like Peter. It's a path that takes us backward and doesn't satisfy us. And what does Jesus do with Peter? He returns once again to the shore of the lake where he had chosen Peter, Andrew, James, and John. All four of them he had chosen there. He does not reproach them. Jesus does not reprove. He touches the heart always. He doesn't reproach, but he always calls his disciples with tenderness children. And then he invites them, as before, to cast their nets again courageously. And once again, the nets are filled to overflowing, the same as before. Brothers and sisters, when our nets are empty in life, it's not the time to feel sorry for ourselves, to have fun, to return to old pastimes. No, it's the time to begin again with Jesus. It's the time to find the courage to begin again. It's the time to set out, to go out into the deep with Him. Always before disappointment, it's the time to begin again, to find courage, and to set out in the deep, especially when we feel like going back. It's time to set out again, to set out into the deep with Him. He's waiting for you. He's thinking of you, of me, of all of us. Peter needed that shock. When he hears John cry out, "It is the Lord," he immediately dives into the water and swims towards Jesus. It's a gesture of love, because love goes beyond what's useful, what's convenient, or what's obligated. Love generates wonder. It inspires creative, freely given zeal. In this way, while John, the youngest, recognizes the Lord, it is Peter, the eldest, who dives to meet Jesus. In that dive, there's all the newfound enthusiasm of Simon, known as Peter. Dear brothers and sisters, today, the risen Christ invites us to a new impetus, to each one of us. He invites us to dive into the good without the fear of losing something, without calculating too much, without waiting for others to begin. Why not to wait for others? Because in order to go out to meet Jesus, we need to be put off balance. We need to be put off balance. Courageously start again, to take a risk. Let us ask ourselves, am I capable of an outburst of generosity, or do I restrain the impulses of my heart and close myself off in routine or in fear? Jump in, dive in. This is Jesus' word for today. And at the end of this episode, Jesus asks Peter for 3 times a question, "Do you love me?" The risen Lord asks us too today, "Do you love me?" Because at Easter, Jesus wants our hearts to rise too. Because faith is not a question of knowing something, but of love. Do you love me? Jesus asks you, to you and to me who have empty nets and so many times we're afraid to start out again. To you and me and all of us who have not the courage to dive in. And perhaps we've lost momentum. Do you love me? Jesus asks. From then on, Peter stopped fishing forever and dedicated himself to the service of God and to his brothers and sisters, to the point of giving his life here where we find ourselves now. And we turn to Our Lady, who readily said yes to the Lord to help us rediscover the impulse to do good.
Resurrexit sic ut dixit, alleluia.
Ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.
Gaude letare Virgo Maria, alleluia.
Quia surrexit Dominus vere, alleluia.
Deus, qui per resurrezione Filii Tui Domini Jesu Christi, mundum letificare dignatus es, presta quesumus, ut per eius genitricem Virgine Mariam, perpetue capiamus gaudia vitae, per Christum Dominum nostrum.
Amen.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Pro fidelibus defuntis, requiem aeternam dona eis Domine.
Et lux perpetua luce a Teis.
Requiescant in pace.
Amen.
Sit nomen Domini benedictum.
Ex hoc nunc et usque in saeculum.
Aiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
Qui fecit caelum et terram.
Benedicat vos, omnipotens Deus, Pater, Filii, Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
You see the banners and people are carrying, people from the United States, from Slovakia. Dear brothers and sisters, yesterday in Milan, Don Mario Cicci and Armida Barelli have been beatified. One is a vicar, a vice pastor who would confess people, would visit with the sick, be with young people in an oratory as a meek guide and secure guide. A luminous example of a pastor, and Armida Barelli was the foundress of young women in Catholic Action. She went all throughout Italy to call young people to their church and civil duties, and she gave life to a secular institute and the University of the Sacred Heart that today celebrates a day that's dedicated to her called the Heart of Women. And so let's give a hand to the newly beatified. Today, the month begins dedicated to the Mother of God. I'd like to invite all the members of the faithful to pray daily the Rosary for Peace. And my thought immediately goes to the Ukrainian city Mariupol, the city of Mary that's been bombarded and destroyed. And once again, even from here, I renew my request that humanitarian corridors be made available for those who are trapped in that city. I suffer and I cry, thinking of the suffering of the Ukrainian people, in particular the weakest, the elderly, children. That news keeps arriving. It's terrible news of children who are expelled and deported. And while something horrible taking humanity back, I'm thinking of all those anguished people and seeking peace, that there might be the willingness, that there be an escalation toward stopping the violence, of dialogue. I beg you, don't surrender to the logic of violence, but that you take the way of dialogue and peace. And let us pray. Our Holy Father bowing his head in prayer, the crowd below responding. Today is the day for work,
perché dovunque e per tutti il lavoro sia dignitoso.
And that may there be, may we dedicate ourselves so that there might be dignified work, and that from the world of work might come the will to foster an economy of peace. And I'd like to recall those employees who die at work. Perhaps there's too many. The day after tomorrow, the 3rd of May, is the World Day of Freedom of the Press from UNESCO. I honor journalists who give their lives in honor of this right. Last year, 46 journalists were killed, and more than 350 were imprisoned. A special thanks to those of them who courageously inform us regarding the wounds of humanity. I greet all of you, those of you from Rome, from pilgrims from Italy and many other countries. In particular, I greet the faithful who've come from Spain, from Portugal, from the United States of America. Also, the Maronite parish from Nazareth and St. Rita in Warsaw. I greet he's greeting some students, and it sounded like a choir. A special thought, the Onlus Meter, who for many years fight against he also greets those belonging to the Immaculata. Don't forget to pray for me. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll see each other again. The usual ending of our Holy Father to this weekly appointment with the faithful from Rome and around the world. And this now ends the live broadcast of the recitation of the Regina Caeli with Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square on this 3rd Sunday of Ordinary Time. We invite you to visit the Vatican News web portal, our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts, where you'll find coverage of today's Regina Caeli, as well as other Vatican and world news. We'll be back again live on Wednesday around 9 o'clock in the morning Rome time, when the Holy Father will lead the general audience here in Rome. I'd like to thank, on behalf of Vatican Media, all of our media partners once more: Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World TV, Salt and Light TV, WTN, Radio Maria England, Shalom TV, at Madarshan TV, Luminous Radio, as well as all of our technicians in studio who've made this broadcast possible. I'm Sister Bernadette, and I'd like to wish you all a beautiful, blessed, and holy Easter Sunday, the 3rd Sunday of Easter. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.